The suitcase came onto Carousel 6 at 11:17 that night. The plane it supposedly came from was still in the air. At first, I thought someone had entered the arrival time wrong. That happens more than you would think. Then I scanned the tag. The flight number was valid. The passenger name was in the system, but the departure date was 7 days away. That plane had not landed yet. It had not even taken off. And inside the suitcase were airport uniforms, temporary badges, and instructions for separating 3 passengers from their families before they reached the arrivals hall. This is the last broadcast files, where some stories were never meant to find you. I worked the late baggage shift at Calder International. It was not one of those huge airports where you needed a train to reach your gate, but it was busy enough that strange things stopped feeling strange after a while. Bags arrived without passengers. Passengers arrived without bags. Tags were printed twice. Entire carts got sent to the wrong terminal. Once, a suitcase full of frozen fish opened on the belt and shut down international baggage for nearly an hour. So, when the black suitcase appeared by itself, I did not immediately assume anything dangerous was happening. Carousel 6 was supposed to be empty. Flight 718 from Raleigh had started its descent, but it was still 28 minutes from the gate. I remember the time because I had checked the board to see whether the flight was delayed. My younger brother Nate was coming home on the same route the following week. He had been working overseas for almost 3 years, and I had promised to pick him up after my shift. The carousel motor suddenly started beneath me. A few seconds later, the suitcase pushed through the rubber flaps. Nothing came behind it. It made a full circle while I stood there trying to decide whether somebody in the tunnel was messing with me. Medium-sized, black hard shell. 4 wheels. No ribbon, sticker, or name written on the side. There was nothing about it you would remember later. I lifted it off the belt and checked the tag. Flight 718, Raleigh to Calder. Then I saw the date. The following Thursday. I scanned the barcode with my handheld reader. The device accepted it immediately. That was the first thing that made me uncomfortable. Fake tags usually returned an error. Damaged ones took 3 or 4 attempts. This opened a full baggage record on the first scan. Adrian Vale, seat 19F, arrival 11:45 p.m. next Thursday. I searched the passenger list for the flight landing that night. There was no Adrian Vale. I called my supervisor, Mara, and told her I had what was probably a training bag circulating on an active belt. She sounded annoyed more than concerned. The airline sometimes used old suitcases during employee training, she said. Someone had probably routed one incorrectly. She told me to put it in the unclaimed luggage cage and continue unloading the flight. That explanation made sense. I picked up the suitcase. The zipper had separated near one corner, and a piece of navy fabric was sticking out. It was an airport customer assistance jacket, not something similar. The real uniform. Same material. Same gray stripe over the shoulder. Same plastic buttons that always felt as if they were about to break. I knew I should have stopped touching it. Instead, I opened it. There were 3 folded uniforms inside, 2 customer assistance jackets, and 1 gray cleaning uniform. Under those were 6 temporary badges in clear plastic holders. They had employee photographs but no printed names. 3 men, 2 women, 1 person wearing glasses and a medical mask. The photos were not professional. A couple looked as though they had been taken against an apartment wall. Beneath the badges were several folders bound with a rubber band. The first one said, Daniel Klein. Daniel was arriving on Flight 718 that night. The page listed his seat number, clothing and luggage. Seat 14A, navy coat. Gray backpack, traveling alone. It also listed the person collecting him, Rebecca Klein. Sister, waiting at door 3, yellow scarf. There was a photograph of her getting out of a car. It looked recent. Underneath that was a note saying Daniel and Rebecca had not seen each other in 7 years. Then, opening phrase, "You still owe me coffee." That line bothered me more than anything else in the folder. A stranger could find someone's flight number, maybe even a photograph. But that sounded private. The page included screenshots from what looked like Daniel's email account. One showed a password reset message from the airline. Another showed a confirmation sent to Rebecca. That at least explained some of it. Someone had been inside their accounts. I looked through the other folders faster. A woman named Lena Ortiz was meeting her father after 9 years. The file described his silver truck and the cane he used. An 18-year-old named Owen Price was being collected by grandparents he had barely seen since childhood. It took me longer than it should have to understand why those 3 had been chosen. Their families would recognize their clothes, their luggage, the way they walked, but maybe not their faces. Not immediately. Not in a crowded terminal after years apart. Each folder had a section marked "Delay." Daniel would be stopped at the jet bridge over a baggage issue. Lena would be redirected to a medical assistance room. Owen would be held because of a problem with his identification. At the bottom of Daniel's page were 4 words: "Replacement reaches family first." I took pictures with my phone. Looking back, that was where I made everything worse. I should have left the bag untouched and called airport police. Instead, I called Mara again because I still wanted somebody to tell me this was a drill. She did not answer. Less than 2 minutes later, a man entered through the staff door. He wore an airport operations jacket and had a radio clipped to his chest. His badge flashed green. He looked like someone I might have passed 20 times without noticing. Mid-40s, short hair, reading glasses hanging from his collar. He knew my first name.
"Mara sent me for the bag."
For a second, I was relieved. Then he pointed toward the suitcase.
"Did you open the inner pocket?"
I had not told Mara about any pocket. I had not even noticed one. I moved between him and the suitcase. I already sent it to security. It was a terrible lie. The suitcase was sitting beside my leg. He looked down at it, then back at me. He did not raise his voice or try to scare me. That somehow made it worse. He pressed the button on his radio.
"There's a handling delay at 6.
Static hissed. Then someone answered.
"Understood."
The man reached toward my phone. I shoved the suitcase back onto the carousel and hit the restart switch. The belt kicked forward hard enough to knock the suitcase onto its side. He grabbed for the handle, missed, and the bag disappeared through the rubber flaps. Then I ran. Halfway to the staff stairwell, my scanner beeped. A notification had appeared. Employee access recorded, gate C19. My name was underneath it, my badge number, my employee profile. I was standing below Terminal A. Gate C19 was almost half a mile away. Somebody was using a copy of my badge. My radio crackled before I reached the stairs. A calm voice said my full name and told me to report to the operations office immediately. It sounded exactly like a real instruction. No panic, no threat, just somebody who expected to be obeyed. I switched the radio off. By the time I reached arrivals, Flight 718 had landed. Families were already crowded behind the barrier. I found Rebecca Klein near door 3 because of the yellow scarf. She was staring toward the exit with her phone in both hands. Then a man came through the arrivals doors wearing a navy coat and carrying a gray backpack, baseball cap low, medical mask over his face. He was roughly Daniel's height. From where Rebecca stood, that was probably enough. He walked directly to her. She froze when she saw him. He leaned close and said something. Rebecca laughed and covered her mouth. Later, she told the police his exact words. "You still owe me coffee." She stepped around the barrier. I shouted Daniel's name. The man stopped and looked across the crowd at me. He did not look surprised. He looked irritated, like I had interrupted something that had already been rehearsed. Then I noticed movement behind the glass wall beside the arrivals corridor. Another man in a navy coat was being led toward a staff-only door by an airport assistance employee. He had the same gray backpack, but this man kept looking behind him toward the crowd. He looked lost. That was Daniel. I ran to the emergency exit and pulled the fire alarm. The sound hit so loudly that people ducked. The magnetic staff doors released with a series of heavy clicks. Travelers stopped. Employees came out of offices. Somebody started shouting for everyone to stay where they were. The fake Daniel let go of Rebecca and disappeared into the crowd. The employee escorting the real Daniel ran through the service corridor. Daniel stayed there, trying to understand what was happening. Airport police found Lena and Owen in an unused interview room near the old customs hall. They had both been told there were problems with their documents. Neither had been hurt. Mara was found locked inside a supply office. She had contacted operations after my first call. Someone had intercepted her before she reached the baggage level. For a few hours, it felt as though we had stopped the whole thing. The passengers were safe. Their families were safe. Security disabled every temporary badge in the building. Then investigators reviewed the camera footage above Carousel 6. The suitcase had never come from an aircraft. 11 minutes before I saw it, a baggage handler had carried it into the tunnel and placed it onto the return belt. He wore my uniform. His badge showed my employee number. From behind, he even moved like me. Same height, same shoulders, same slight limp in his left leg. I had injured mine years earlier falling from a loading platform. I had never posted about it. Police asked whether anyone had borrowed my uniform. No. They asked whether I had ever photographed my badge. I had, once. Months earlier, I had sent a picture of it to Nate after they changed the uniform design. The image had been stored in our message history. Nate's email account used the same password as his cloud backup. At least it had before that night. An investigator later found another folder beneath the torn lining of the suitcase. The date was the following Thursday, Flight 718. The passenger was Nate. The file listed his seat, his suitcase, and the jacket he planned to wear. Under family contact, it listed me. There were photographs of me entering work, my schedule, the parking entrance I used when I was running late. Then I saw one line that made it difficult to breathe. Recognition signal, 2 raised fingers. When Nate and I were kids, we never waved to each other. We held up 2 fingers. It meant, I see you. Nobody else used it. Nate canceled the flight and changed every account he had. The police told me not to return to the airport while the investigation was open. But the following Thursday, I went back. I stood on the public mezzanine above Carousel 6 and watched Flight 718 arrive without him. The passengers went upstairs. A few minutes later, the carousel started moving. Then a baggage handler stepped through the rubber flaps. He was wearing my uniform. He was too far away for me to see his face clearly, but he looked up toward the mezzanine, straight at me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he raised 2 fingers, slowly. He turned toward the staff door and pressed his badge against the reader. The light flashed green. The lock clicked, and nobody even looked up as he went inside.